towards earning, spending, investing, and also looking at risk. What are they learning? What are they unlearning from previous generations? A lively, insightful dive into the physical psyche of India's future is what we are going to be diving into. For this session, we have the top fin influencers of the country joining in on this program. Let's welcome Ms. Rachana Ranade, founder of Rachana Ranade and Associates. Warm welcome. Let's also invite Mr. Sarthak Ahuja, Director, Nyam Ventures and an author, Mukul Malik, founder of AssetYogi, and Sanjay Katuria, finance coach. To moderate this session, I'd like to call upon stage my colleague Karishma Sudani, special correspondent, Business Today, and I'll be co-moderating this session with her senior associate editor and anchor at Business Today. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure it's a house full at the last final session, so you should actually know, what is the kind of excitement that everybody has for this session. These are the top fin influencers of the country. Huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. You have seen their reels go viral. You have attended their YouTube masterclasses. You've seen them demystify money matters for 1 billion young minds. And today on this stage, we're going to be understanding from them how the changing habits of younger generations are going to create a larger impact on the economy over the next 2 decades when India reaches its next goal of 2047 towards a Viksit Bharat. I want to start off this by relating one instance. Now what happened 2 days back, I was at a mall. I had actually gone to a sportswear store. And there was one person who walked in, was speaking on a speaker phone. And I could obviously hear all the conversation that he was having, and because I was not overhearing, it was loud on the speaker. I'll tell you what that conversation was. That conversation was, "Hi, मैं आज shopping करने आया हूँ और Adidas में आया हूँ. पहले 2 सांबा लेंगे, फिर 2 स्टैंड स्पिट लेंगे, फिर नाइकी जाएंगे, 2 जॉर्डन उठाएंगे, उसके बाद ज़ारा भी जाएंगे और कपड़े भी लेंगे." Pat comes the other reply on the other side, and that woman says, "क्यों? आज क्या है?" And this guy replies, "ऐसे ही मन कर रहा है." And I want to start off by asking all of you if you could just give me an understanding of what does this tell about the young persons or young people's mindset that's changing about money. If I could start off with you, Rachana.
Hi everyone. Thank you for waiting till the last session. Otherwise, we would have been talking to chairs and tables. So thank you very much. So recently, I was in Sri Lanka, and it was a gathering of a lot of finance influencers. A lot of influencers, I must say. And majority of them were Gen Zs. So जब मैंने उनको पूछा that I was talking about their spending habits, everyone had the latest iPhone, everyone had the best sneakers, and whatever you ask, everything was latest. So मैंने उनको बोला ये कैसे कर लेते हो आप? So they said, its answer is very simple. We gain generational wealth. So they were past the generational wealth, and they said it's in our platter right now. इकलौते बेटे हैं हम, या फिर 1-2 ही है, और इतना बड़ा पैसा मॉम डैड ने कमा के रखा है. So we now get to follow our heart. So I said, at least make it a point that you pass on that generational wealth to the next generation, so that they can also follow their heart. But it's interesting. I mean, having said that, they said that we also invest. But we also want to ensure that latest चीज़ें हमारे पास है, भले ही EMI पे है, लेकिन है. That is their mindset. That's what I got to know from them.
Well, actually, before Sakshi you started, I noticed that the session is called Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. Is there a show of hands? How many of you have watched the movie?
At least 100 times, I would say.
Yeah, and guys, I mean, the fact that most of us are millennials in the room, at least if not by age, by heart. So the fact is, this movie has taught us a lot of life lessons. It's been a crash course to life philosophy, and why I relate, it's interesting, the title, and why all 6 of us are sitting here, is the character of Hrithik Roshan. This hot, handsome dude, financially sorted, focused, on trip, working while he's skydiving. And yet, after the trip, also he's back, able to manage his finances. Sarthak, I want to come to you. Can this kind of Hrithik Roshan character actually exist in real life?
I would think it is existing, Whether how sustainability or not is the question. And I think The reason I say that is you look at the stats, they're out there that 70% of the iPhones in India are actually bought on EMIs. You know, there are a total of roughly 4 crore iPhones in India right now, 1 crore bought in the past 12 months. I think it was just in the news yesterday where it said 27% of all vacations being taken this year are on EMIs. And that was so surprising for me because the 70% EMI for iPhones news is something I'd consumed a year and a half ago and I'd come to accept it. But this 27% vacations on EMIs is quite a shocker. And I think when we read this, as Rachana mentioned, I think there's a lot of generational wealth being passed on where Gen Z doesn't really have to care for or save for buying a house because their parents are kind of giving it to them in inheritance. And adding to that, when there's so much of social media exposure, you know, even if assuming just 15% of the people are getting generational wealth, the remaining 85% being part of that ecosystem and getting so exposed to people buying the latest Jordans or the Sambas suddenly feel like now with this zero cost EMI, it's easily accessible to me. So just to be able to fit in or to be cool, why should I not do it? And you know, that social peer pressure is so high, which thankfully didn't exist back when we guys were growing up in school. So I wouldn't want to blame them, but I think I would also draw your attention to the fact that India is right now at about $3,000 per capita GDP. And this is historically study any economy of the world, and it tells you that this is exactly the benchmark where it's an inflection point where discretionary spend just skyrockets. And I think that's exactly what is happening because at this point, there is that sweet spot of percentage of the population getting generational wealth that everyone else in peer pressure starts consuming a lot more. And I think that consumption story is also why everyone's betting on India, because 60% of our GDP or more is purely consumption.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's good while it's also bad.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're in a tricky spot.
Mukul, I'll come to you on that. So tell me, this age of instant gratification, where nobody wants to wait for later, aaj man hai to khareed liya, is that turning out to be a very big risk for this generation on how this generation is spending money?
Yeah, see, I think since we are talking about this generation, I think the sample set that we are taking is also a very small percentage of the overall India. I think we are only talking about 5-10%, which is spending like Hrithik Roshan of Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara or like Kal Ho Na Ho, right? So I think we have to consider the overall population of India. And I think Sarthak has already shared some stats, and I can also quote a couple of stats. One stat says that foreign travel has increased by almost 1000x, 1000 times in last 15 years, right? But is everybody traveling? That sample set is very small, right? That's number one. Number two, we also have a data where people are trading a lot these days, right? People are making bets on risky investments. There is a data which says that 93% of people are losing money on futures and options, right? So I think the current generation has been sensitized to newer avenues of investments, but I think everybody has to be sensitized towards risk as well.
Actually, I'd come to you, Sanjay, and I think there has been a transition, a subtle transition from the fact that Gen X have always thought about funds and finances as security, and we, maybe the upcoming Gen Z and others, they think about it as a freedom. Do you see that transition to be a challenge, or probably the fact that we are gelling up in the dynamic nature of how our country is evolving?
See, thank you so much, first of all. There's a book written by Adam Smith, it's called Wealth of Nations. And it is like the original book on economics. So it mentions any country's growth depends upon 4 big factors. One is the demography, one is the consumption, one is entrepreneurship, and the last is innovation. So if you look at India on all these 4 parameters, demographics amazing, you have great population. Then consumption, as Sarthak mentioned, is on an inflection, it has increased. Then you have entrepreneurship, and we have seen amazing entrepreneurship ride, which has happened since 2013-14, after all the startup era came in. And then you have innovation, where I feel Obviously, we can improve a lot there, where your foreign counterparts like US, Israel, these guys do fairly well. Now, if our economy has to go up, consumption has 60%, it has to keep on going up. The issue is that Gen Z is not understanding the difference between good debt and bad debt. So you can take bad debt. It's like, let's say if somebody's alcoholic, I'm not, so if somebody's alcoholic and they take one peg, ek raat ko 8 baje ke baad, chalega, you know, then it's bad debt, but you can consume it. So if you have your rules in place that, okay, I will consume one peg, it's okay, chalega, hafte mein 2 baar karenge, so then you can manage it. So bad debt is when you take debt to consume. Now Amazon mentions ki big billion days jo sale hota hai, in that you have from every 4 sales, 3 are on EMI. Just imagine 75% are on EMI. So people are not realizing that EMI is not going to ever end. वो आपने आईफोन ले लिया नया, उसका स्टोरी डाल दिया, स्टोरी 24 घंटे में खत्म हो जाएगा, EMI 5 साल चलेगा.
Irresponsible spending.
Yes. So everybody should understand good debt, bad debt. Good debt is something, if you take debt and you build something, you can build a house, a shop, a piece of land, and a startup. That's good debt. You know, tomorrow you will create something and you can repay that debt. Here you are consuming. So that consumption has to be a very little percentage of your take-home income. If those rules are followed, we can be a good consuming economy and people will not fall in the distress of debt. When Sarthak mentioned a lot of data, I will add one to that. Credit card debt has spiked by 44% in a year. Now just imagine 44% credit card debt. मैं एक लड़की से मिला and I was just amazed at how credit card companies are doing it. She said, मैं ना minimum due pay करती हूँ. तो यार तुम minimum due क्यों pay करते हो भाई? तो she's like, अरे you know the bank told me कि I have to pay only 3.5% interest and in savings bank I get in FD I get 6% interest. I said, madam, हर महीने 3.5% देना है. वहाँ पे साल में एक बार मिलेगा. So the kind of financial awareness we have right now is very, very poor. We are trying our best, but the panel here is not sufficient to proliferate it to the country of 140 crore people.
I think that's a very important point that you made. You know, what we are given to understand is this next generation who we are talking about, they are learning their first lessons in money and finance on reels, on social media, 1 minute reel, 30-second reel of a lesson. Is that a big risk? And how do they identify what is the right, what is the wrong? How do they identify what is the authentic advice there and where am I getting into a trap? So how would you advise that? Let me take that with Sarthak.
I'm so glad you brought it up because I think I like to compare it to a media diet. You know, it's almost like a diet. You need to have a balanced diet and you can't have your entire diet based on junk food. I mean, what I think Reels is no matter how much it tries to educate you on a particular subject, at the end of the day, you can call it protein chips. You know, it can't replace your meal. And the reason I say that is, while all of us do content, you know, people have to think that while we are financial educators, at the same time, the business is media. You know, and I'm not just saying it, I don't want to sit on a high horse and, you know, say I'm holier than thou in any way. But what I intend on mentioning is that when you have just 90 seconds, even with the best of your hearts, you will try and crunch down that information to what is the core insight I can deliver in 90 seconds and no more. But that should just be a trailer for people who get exposed to it and feel, okay, I need to learn something from it, but definitely go deeper. Don't base your entire judgment on a 90-second reel. And I would hope the audience has that kind of awareness, because all of us sitting here don't just put out content on reels but also long form. We also do programs, so we would help, or we would hope that the audience looks at reels as just top of the funnel awareness and then picking and choosing what they want to go down deeper into, watching maybe a 15-minute video or maybe doing a 2-day long program, you know. And I would hope that that responsibility rests on the audience and not necessarily entirely on the people delivering the content.
Can I add on to this? There is a book by Daniel Kahneman. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow, right? So it says that in some decisions, you can be very fast in your thinking. Like you're on a red light, your brain is wired, right? As soon as it turns green, you will just move. But a lot of people are buying stocks, watching a reel. Yes. That's not right? So there are some decisions in life which should be taken slow. you have to spend some time, you have to spend time analyzing that stock, you have to spend some time analyzing that person who is talking about it, right? So I think if people are judgmental in that sense, and they can, identify who is to be followed and what kind of content I should be following, I think they will be all right.
Karishma?
Rachana, initially, and I can speak again from the experience of being a millennial, there was a very strong ideology of the fact that be financially independent early in life and also retire early. By 40, you just are home and relaxing and doing things you love. But there has been a burnout with that ideology. Why do you think did this happen?
No, in fact, whenever I take sessions, I ask in the crowd, anyone who wants to retire at 40? Almost 90% people raise their hand, I want to retire at 40. Then I open online calculators. And when they understand that this is way beyond their reach, that is where they come down to reality. कि 40 पे retire होना is a myth for 90 to 95% of the people. Only 5 to 10% of the people can crack it.
Aspiration.
When did you get financially free? At what age?
Has SEBI allowed this?
I can say at 35.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Huge round of applause.
So I think it's about like whatever I'm getting from everyone here. See, generalizing anything is so difficult in India. One of my acquaintances, he has a very nice office in Mumbai, and he said, if I look outside the left window, we have the world's largest slum in India, and I can say India is a very poor country. If I look outside my right window, that is the place where one of the finest weddings, the Ambani's wedding, took place. And if I look at that side, I will say India is one of the richest countries. So we have such a divide just by looking at this side and that side of the office. So generalizing any statement on this stage in itself can be questioned. So it has to be looked from multiple perspectives before we conclude on anything.
So do you have like a ballpark figure in your mind? What is needed for this generation to be financially free at 40 or 35 or 50? Is there like a ballpark figure that all of us can aim to reach?
There can't be a ballpark figure for anyone. That's what I'm telling you. वो बोलते ना मेरी ज़रूरतें कम है इसीलिए मेरे सीने में दम है बाजीराव सिंघम
नहीं मतलब जैसे एक
तो
दो
जिसकी ज़रूरत कम है उसका रिटायरमेंट का कम रहेगा ना अमाउंट जिसका ज़रूरत ज़्यादा है उसका
ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है चलो वो मान के बताओ
ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है आप मतलब अगेन ज़्यादा फॉर अ सोबो पर्सन एंड ज़्यादा फॉर अ पर्सन हु हैज़ बीन इन इट्स वेरी वेरी सब्जेक्टिव इसीलिए there are a lot of online calculators which are available. Everyone needs to learn how to calculate the retirement amount that a person needs. There is a very beautiful shairi, if you are okay, I can quote that. कि सुबह सुबह उठना पड़ता है ज़िंदगी कमाने के लिए साहेब, आराम कमाने निकलता हूँ आराम छोड़कर, दौलत की भूख ऐसी लगी कमाने निकल गए, दौलत की भूख ऐसी लगी कमाने निकल गए, दौलत मिली तो हाथ से रिश्ते निकल गए, बच्चों में रहने की फुर्सत न मिली कभी, बच्चों में रहने की फुर्सत न मिली कभी, और जब फुर्सत मिली तो बच्चे कमाने निकल गए.
Brilliant.
So if we don't know how much money do we need for retirement, हम ऐसे ही भागते रहेंगे पीछे, ये कम है ये कम है. So it's so simple. Go online. आप मेरे वेबसाइट पे भी जा सकते हो rachanaranade.com. free calculator है, but definitely check it out. It will be easier to calculate and then plan accordingly.
Karishma.
Mukul, I will actually throw a live situation similarly to this because we were talking about ballpark figures. What if a young person is given 50,000 rupees, say somebody who's just about to get into the grad school, where should that money go?
Sorry, just come back, 50,000 rupees.
If a young person who's just entering a grad school per se, somebody
Yeah.
who need not have the responsibilities right now,
Yeah.
where should that 50,000 money go? What's the best way of utilizing that?
See, I think first is to build his skill set to increase his capital. Okay, I think the compound interest is the simplest formula of wealth building, right? So amount is equal to principal into 1 plus returns over n, right? So you please increase your capital first. So you take some courses, increase your capital. Next comes returns. You identify good avenues, right? So mutual fund is a good starting point because you can start with, 100 rupees also these days. Then comes N, which is time period. So time period, as soon as you can, you should start. So I think if somebody understands this simple formula, he will, I think, be very, very good. I think he can actually retire at 40 probably.
Wow. Okay. Sanjay, I want to ask you then, if you have to advise a 20-something person today, what is the most underrated financial move that they should do so that they can actually retire at 40?
20 साल वाले सुनते नहीं हैं हमारी बात. I think these two terms, funny terms, one is YOLO.
Yes.
And one is FOMO.
Yes.
I think these are the only things which you need to get out of your mind. I think you should do POLO. POLO means plan or lose out.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
So you do POLO, which is you plan for yourself. And I think there are enough and more videos, book, content, so much written around money. Yes. Good starting point could be Psychology of Money, where they speak about Ronald Reed, a janitor, jhadu pocha marne wala. And he kept on investing for 50 years and how he became the US's top 2%, 1 or 2%, retired with an $8 million fund, just by being a janitor. So, long-term investing is so powerful. I was checking Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. It was formed in 1965. Till today, that's 60 years. The returns on that fund that company is 19.8% per annum. If somebody had to put 1,000 rupee SIP, ठीक है, real content आ गया. So if somebody had to put 1,000 rupee SIP for these 60 years, उसने कितना पैसा डाला होता? 7,20,000 rupees.
Okay.
Any guesses? What is the value of that 7,20,000 today after 60 years? Anyone from the room who wants to take a wild guess? 12 crores. Okay. Wow. Any other guess? Let's go a little higher. The answer is around 700 crores.
Wow.
700 crores. Rachana Ranade ma'am की website पे जाएं और check कर लें. So, if somebody, if a kid is born today to a family, and क्या 1,000 रुपए निकालना बहुत मुश्किल है या 2,000 रुपए निकालना बहुत मुश्किल है? I tell everyone, even if your salary is 25,000, you forget it's 25,000, you think it's 24,000. भूल जाओ 1,000, डाल दो उसको. Just forget it. It builds your habit. नहीं तो क्या होगा जब आपकी तनख्वाह 5 लाख भी होगी, वो habit नहीं बनेगी. I have seen one of my own friends at 7 lakh rupee per month salary, CFO, sorry, not CFO, COO. CFO तो ऐसी गलती नहीं करेंगे. COO. And he loses out money till 25th of the month. Why? Because he didn't put up a habit. So I think my biggest advice to anyone who's young today is to get out of this FOMO, YOLO. All of this will happen. Keep a good budget for yourself. Understand where you are spending your money. Prepare for emergencies of life. And keep on investing a little bit. Enjoy your life also, but keep on investing a little bit to just develop your habit, because you're not going to make 20,000 for your entire life. You will improve your salary, as Mukul was saying.
Absolutely. So Sanjay, I want to follow up. You said SIP. So everybody by now actually knows there is something called a mutual funds you have to invest. But what I've also heard you talk a lot about is that a bigger magical compounding factor is SWP. Can you break that for all our audiences? What exactly is SWP, and how do we really look at that aspect to create more wealth?
See, SWP, I believe, is very, very magical. And I think this was the word which got me millions of views with that reel. See, what people think about conventionally is that मैं retire होऊंगा, मेरे पास एक घर होगा जिसमें मैं रह रहा हूँ, एक घर और होगा जिससे मुझे भाड़ा आएगा, right? Now you have to understand, somebody who's 60, who has created a corpus, now retired, it's very difficult for them to go and collect their rents, take care of the house, the kids may not be staying with them, वो बाहर पढ़ने चले गए हैं. So it's very difficult for a 60-year-old to, make money out of that. So better is to put that money in a fund, and it's assume that money is like water in a bucket. ठीक है, तो आपका पैसा अभी भी ग्रो कर रहा है बिकॉज वो म्यूचुअल फंड में पड़ा है. तो यू जस्ट हैव टू एंश्योर वन थिंग, दैट द लीक इन योर बकेट इज स्मॉलर देन द मनी कमिंग टू योर बकेट, सो विच वी कॉल इन कंपाउंडिंग एज विड्रॉवल रेट. सो इफ योर विड्रॉवल रेट इज लेसर देन योर कंपाउंडिंग रेट, योर मनी विल नेवर एवर फिनिश and you will still keep on making passive income. And that's the magic which can be created with systematic withdrawal plan. अगर आपके पास 2 करोड़ रुपए हैं तो आप महीने का 1 लाख रुपया निकाल सकते हो और वो पैसा जिंदगी भर खत्म नहीं होगा अगर आपने सही तरीके से उसको इन्वेस्टेड रखा है तो दैट्स द पावर ऑफ
So, SWP का टैगलाइन होना चाहिए, जिंदगी के साथ भी जिंदगी के बाद भी.
कैलकुलेटर्स अवेलेबल ऑन rachanaranade.com.
Sarthak, I'll come to you. Sanjay, a while back, also mentioned about the fact that how people think it's okay to do minimum payments on credit card without worrying what is about to come. And actually, this is something that's leaked in from Confessions of a Shopaholic, where it's very common for them to do this, that we will see after 45 days, and on the 45th day, they think that we'll see after few more days because it's just minimum payment. I want to bring in the topic, and because we are talking about generational influence in this, it is about financial therapy and money trauma. Do you think this has become an emotional territory now for a lot of young people? What do you usually get to hear from young people when you're putting out your videos on these aspects?
I think on the credit card, I'll start off with the fact that a few days ago, I think probably about a month ago, I'd put out a post saying that credit card frauds and the fact that people end up paying so much interest has now become so common that you should ideally not have more than 2 credit cards. And the kind of thrashing I got in the comments was that, what does this guy even know? I personally, if I could talk about, is I have one credit card, which is the company credit card, and it gets paid automatically the full amount. And I do understand I may be able to save a lot more if I use a credit card smartly, but I feel there's only limited bandwidth that one can really apply. Either you can put that brains on cost saving, or you can, put those brains on increasing your income in some way. And given the kind of age I'm at, or maybe I understand I say this with a lot of privilege, saying that I can put my mental bandwidth on increasing my income rather than trying to optimize on how much percentage I'll save on my cost. So I think this is something that people really need to understand. I feel the bigger heartbreak comes to me that I think a lot of people start putting their minds to using a credit card to save on costs and put a lot more brain on where they can invest, because if they feel that in life they've reached that point where they have no other way to earn a higher income. And I think that for me is heartbreaking, where if at the age of 30 you feel India, where the world is betting on as the fastest growing large economy, and if you still feel that there is no opportunity for you to get a better job that pays well or start an entrepreneurial journey where you can make a lot more money, I think that is somewhere that we as a society, as an economy, are failing, that the rich are getting richer and the Gini coefficient is rising. That I would feel a lot more people should have that joy. And if they are in this situation and they get some kind of kick out of retail therapy or some joy out of spending more money, I feel, while I understand the problem as a diagnosis, as like a financial doctor of some sorts, but because I'm not in their shoes, I feel it's very difficult for me to also pass judgment, because I'm thinking maybe if I were to be in their shoes where there is no way for me to increase my income, and buying those extra pair of shoes is the only kind of joy I get in a month, maybe I might behave in their way as well, because at the end of the day, finance is more psychological than on an Excel sheet, right? And I think this actually shows that we as a society need to do a lot more in removing that income disparity.
Sure.
And that is probably the top of the funnel where trickle-down effect may actually come down.
Yeah, Sakshi, actually the room will probably be divided on how everybody must have utilized their first salaries.
Yeah.
While few must have probably saved it, few, like Sakshi had mentioned in the beginning, the anecdote relating that they must have bought the most expensive Nike shoes. How have each of you utilized your first savings or first earnings?
My first earning was 20,000 rupees. Out of that, I started my very first recurring. Of course, at that time, I was not allowed to invest in stock market. My dad hadn't
Wow,
allowed.
Rachana Ranade was not allowed to invest in stock markets at some stage.
Yeah. So I started investing 5,000 rupees in an RD at that time.
How did you convince, who did not, your parents did not allow you?
For stock market?
Yeah.
Yes.
How did you convince them that this is what I'm going to do for a living now?
It was very hard. Even today, he keeps on scolding me कि बस ज़्यादा था, बहुत हो गया. Now enough. Put more in FD.
Okay.
I really don't remember. I started off with like a stipend of 5,000 rupees, which people get when they're doing their CA articleship. But I don't remember spending on anything substantial. I think my first major spend was just working for 5 years and then it going towards my MBA. And I think that was probably the best investment I could have made.
I think I was a little privileged here. I started my career as a merchant navy officer. So I didn't get 1 month salary. I actually got 6 months salary when I got down from the ship. So I had some money. And actually I went and bought some mutual funds at that time.
Wow.
In 2004, I think.
Wonderful, Sanjay.
I started teaching when I was in 7th standard. So I made 700 rupees in the very first month.
Wow.
And my school fees used to be 60 rupees for the year. मतलब यार चलो school की fees तो हमने एक ही महीने में निकाल ली. That was my first memory of money. But after that, when I started earning properly, it was 20,000. I used to do tuitions at IMS part-time. And that money I started investing in the markets, PPF. My father being a very avid investor, उन्होंने मेरा डीमैट अकाउंट ओपन कर दिया, पीपीएफ अकाउंट ओपन कर दिया. Rachana Ranade ma'am is like very jealous right now.
Sakshi, how did you utilize your first salary?
I think I was the worst of them all. I just saved it in my savings bank account. I didn't do too much.
That's not bad. Saving is
savings
good.
bank account. But I want to ask you on that note, FDs, recurring deposit savings accounts was previous generation. Kind of a thing of investing. What about this generation is more about mutual funds, stocks. What will be the next generation's biggest money-making idea? What do you think will be the best asset to allocate your money in over the next 22 years? Anyone can take that.
I think I can take this up. I think stocks will remain the highest money-making instrument, which will have an underlying asset, right? So I will qualify this because I don't really believe in cryptocurrencies till they prove themselves. Okay, but I think there will be a few things which will evolve. We don't have fractional shares so far in India. I mean, if you want to buy, for example, if you want to buy a Berkshire Hathaway share in the US today, it's going to cost you, I think, 7 lakh US dollars, right? So you can just multiply, it will be 6 crores. How many people can buy one share?
Wow.
So same thing is happening in India also. There are a lot of shares which people just can't buy. Even if you have to buy one share, you have to spend like a lakh, right? So I think fractional share is one thing which I feel that it's going to happen.
Perfect. Time's up, but we're talking about stocks, and Rachana really sings beautifully as well on her YouTube channel. So we would ask her to sing a song on stock markets. Do you have a song in mind
on stock market
that you can actually think of?
The viral songs. Acha. एक 1,000 रुपए डाल के 10 करोड़.
I'm just about to ask. He told if we have invested in 1960 in Hathway, today it becomes 700 crore rupees. So how many of you, if we divided by 10, invested 1,000 rupees of any stock market, have you made 70 crore rupees, or have you make a corpus of that fund, or just we are like past history we are saying, but we are not telling about what will happen in next 20 years? Can anyone told me which company will have a 25-year in next 25 years and it will sustain?
Sir, first of all, compounding doesn't work 1 by n. मतलब ऐसा नहीं होता कि अगर 60 साल आपने इन्वेस्ट किया है तो पहले 10 साल में 700 करोड़ का आपको 100 करोड़ मिल जाएगा. कंपाउंडिंग में जो लास्ट का 10 साल होता है उसमें आपको 70% गेन मिलता है. मतलब all of your gain, 70 to 80% of it will come in the last 20% of the period, and that's the magic of compounding. That's why it's called the 8th wonder of the world. Second, nobody in this world knows that which company will compound for 25% per annum. It is great for YouTube videos, reels, shorts, but nobody, I don't think so, anybody can take a guess. But third thing which I know is that this country is going to grow at a significant rate. Today it's growing at 7% over and above inflation. यानी अगर मैं nominal growth देखूं इंडिया की तो 12-13% के आसपास है. तो अगर 12-13% हमारा देश बढ़ने वाला है और मुझे भरोसा है कि हमारा देश आगे बढ़ेगा. आज इंडिया के म्यूचुअल फंड्स $0.71 ट्रिलियन का AUM है. आज US का यही नंबर 31 ट्रिलियन है. चाइना का यही नंबर 5 ट्रिलियन है, तो हमें भी वहां पहुंचना तो है. अब कब पहुंचना है, 10 साल 20 साल, वो हमारी स्पीड डिटरमाइन करेगी. सो द बेस्ट bet we can do is to bet on India, to bet on the top 500 companies of India, which could be Nifty 500 or you select mid cap, small cap, your choice. But nobody in this room has invested for 60 years 1,000 rupees. इतना तो मैं कह सकता हूँ.
Running out of time.
A big thank you to you for giving me time to think which song can I sing. The theme is Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, so I'll just try and match it with money. आपने वो गाना सुना ही होगा. This is a newbie person who is singing to stock market. स्टॉक मार्केट में अभी अभी आया है, नए नए न्यूज़ सुन रहा है स्टॉक मार्केट के, एंड दिस इज़ व्हाट ही इज सिंगिंग टू द स्टॉक मार्केट. न मैं समझा ना मैं जाना जो भी तुमने मुझसे कहा है सेन्योरिटा, मगर फिर भी न जाने क्यों मुझे सुन के अच्छा लगा है सेन्योरिटा. पता तो नहीं चल रहा है लेकिन सुन के अच्छा लग रहा है. अभी उसने इन्वेस्ट करना शुरू कर दिया. नाउ ही इज एक्सपेक्टिंग इंस्टेंट ग्रेटिफिकेशन. जैसे आपने बोला इंस्टेंट ग्रेटिफिकेशन चाहिए. मुझसे अब नज़र ना फेरो, आओ पास तुम मेरे, मुझको बाहों में तुम ले लो, समझी ना सेन्योरिटा. मिलेगा क्या प्रॉफिट इतने जल्दी? चाहत के 2 पल भी मिल पाए, थोड़ा सा तो प्रॉफिट मिले. दुनिया में ये भी कम है क्या, 2 पल को तो आओ खो जाए, बुरे हम होते गम है क्या सेन्योरिटा, सुनो सुनो सेन्योरिटा, कहते हैं हम क्या.
Fantastic. Huge round of applause. That was a perfect end to this fantastic day. Thank you so much, Sanjay, Mukul, Sarthak and Rachana for that fantastic conversation. Huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. May I invite on stage Mr. Siddharth Zarabi and Mr. Alok Nair as well. If you could come up on stage, CEO Business Today, to present a token of appreciation to all our guests. Ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for being such a great audience till the end of this entire day. And thank you so much for being with us. Do join us for dinner and networking right now. Thank you. You've been brilliant.